Hey everybody, welcome back to the Engineered Angler. Check that sunshine out. It's been a while since it's been that sunny, but it's also cold, just sort of crisp and windy. And I know most of the Northeast is covered in snow, but it's Florida. It's not supposed to be cold. It's supposed to be nice all the time. All right, so what I want to do is make a lure that a lot of people have asked me to make, which is a boot tail soft plastic swim bait. You know what I'm talking about. Something like this. The front of the body kind of like a fluke bait, but the back tapering back to a boot-shaped tail, and that gives you that little flipper action as you're retrieving it. Obviously, this is a soft plastic lure. That means I've got to make a male master, then take that and make a mold from it, and then we can start pouring soft plastic lures with it. So that's a lot of work to do in one video, so we're gonna have to cheat a little bit. So I was looking for a way to kind of hurry the process a little bit, and it just so happened that I was going through the toothbrush aisle at my local store when I came across these kids' toothbrushes. I took one look at it and I thought, man, these things look like they were meant to be lures. And you gotta admit, these things look like they might have been designed by a lure maker. So we're gonna take these, we're gonna do a little bit of modification, and we're gonna turn these into our masters so that we can make molds. And then we're gonna pour some nice soft plastic lures. So if you're curious about how that's gonna turn out, stick around. All right, let's break into these and get started. I'm calling this the head, and I considered just taking all the bristles off, and then I could bend this tail section and have it be the paddle, but it's just too small and a little too weird. So what I'm gonna do is cut that off. And I wanna design this with a specific hook in mind, and I really like a 4/0 hook. So I'm thinking something like that. Now this part right here is kind of thick and heavy, and I'm a little afraid that it won't allow the lure to move very much. So I think what I'm gonna do is cut a bunch of grooves in here to give it that flexibility. But first, I need to shorten this so the hook will stick out and there'll be enough meat in the front. So we'll cut it off right here. Okay, so maybe I won't escape shaping and carving completely. And we'll just get these bristles out of the way and make a mess. All right, let's cut. And I'm going to square up that cut. I want this knot right here to be reduced in mass. So I'm gonna go ahead and use these little chevrons to mark where I wanna cut. So back of that one and the front of the other one. And I'm gonna take the Dremel and just cut a slot down about to there. Need to go a little bit deeper, and then we'll cut the other one. All right, that's looking pretty good. I think that'll loosen up the action of this tail as that boot tail wants to lift it. It'll have a way to move. All right, I'll clean it up a little more and we'll get on to the next step. All right, so despite of my attempts to make this as sanding free as possible, I am doing a little sanding, and I'm finding that using fine sandpaper really kind of cleans up the grinding marks from when I was actually doing the shaping. And you can see that's looking pretty good. Both the little slots and the shape at the nose look pretty good. And for some final sort of surface smoothing, I'm taking a little bit of acetone in a paper towel and cleaning up those surfaces. And I'm gonna do that for everything that I shaped. You know, before I move on, it occurred to me that I'd like to have some eyes on this, and I don't want to have to glue them on afterward. Let's go ahead and mold in some eyes. I'm thinking I'll make some little eye sockets with a drill bit, and then we'll glue on some, I don't know, maybe a couple of beads. All right, you think that'll be about the right size? We don't have much of a choice. I think that's the biggest one I have. All right, so I drilled the sockets in. Now all I got to do is glue these in, but I'll probably do that a little later. Let's work on this tail. So some of you might be a little bit confused, thinking that somehow I'm doing a really sloppy job, or that I'm putting together materials that won't stay together. But remember, this is just the blank. This is going to be my master for the mold. This particular piece of plastic will not be a lure. So just keep that in mind. So it's going to look a little bit ragtag until we actually make it out of soft plastic. So that said, I'm going to make the little boot tail in the back out of these big tongue depressor things. I'm going to glue these two together, and then I'm going to use the ends, either one, for the tails. And I'm going to make two of these blanks, so I'm going to have a double mold. This way we can make two at a time. All right, so I'm gonna get my hands clean, and while this sets up, I'll take the other one out and get that in shape. Yuck. All right, so this thing is glued together, and the idea is I'm going to use the very end as that boot tail. All right, let's cut these. All right, so that should do it. I got them both trimmed down to about the size of the width of that back of the tail. And now I'm just going to give it a little bit of hand sanding just to soften those edges, and then we'll glue them on. Oh well, I glued my finger not to the thing. A little more sanding just to refine it a little bit. I'm going to fill the little gap in here with some UV resin, and then I'll run a bead of UV resin all the way around the inside on the bottom just to give it that nice fitted look. If you look at the inside joint, you can see a little bit of a bead that I put in with UV resin. All right, now all I got to do is do this to the other one. And I'm going to glue the eyes in with the UV resin as well. Almost no shaping and almost no sanding. And we got some pretty cool shapes that have really interesting contours and some cool textures. And those are all things that would have been really difficult to do just carving and sanding. So pretty happy with this. I know it's cheating, but it could be worse. I could have just grabbed one off the rack at Bass Pro and made a mold of it. All right, it doesn't look like I'm gonna have enough of these blocks to actually make a mold box that's big enough. And let me show you why. Imagine these are our two Swimbait masters. I gotta have a box that gives me enough space to have good thick walls, but also I need room at the very top for a sprue, and I need a little volume reservoir just below the sprue so that as the plastic starts to cool and wants to shrink, it has some place to draw fresh material from so you don't get the body kind of caving in on itself. To make the box, I'm going to use this PVC board. I just have it laying around. Now you can use anything. You can use thin plywood, you can use plastic sheets, you can use construction board, cardboard, whatever you got laying around. All I'm going to do is cut this to size and hot glue it together. Well, it turns out I don't have enough clay for this box because this box is just so big. So I'm gonna have to go buy more before I can actually pour the first half of the silicone mold, which kind of is a bummer because I thought I was gonna get way ahead and get this thing poured tonight. At least I've got the box glued together. All right, that was a bit of a waste of time, but I'm happy I found some. It was in the mid-20s this morning, so that's pretty cold for here. So I'm gonna go ahead and warm up the clay with a little room heater. All right, so I've got this thing pretty much filled, Now I just need to pull the box out from around it so I can work a little easier. So I'm going to place them as low as I can on the clay. And then this piece of 5/8 dowel is going to go right there to create my little reservoir. And then we'll put a sprue going into it right here. It's just a matter of digging out all this clay. I've got the reservoir in there as well, and I'm going to use this cut off old wire nut as a form for my sprue. And then to form the connection between the reservoir and the lure bodies, I'm going to use little pieces of this plumber's solder. It's real easy to cut, real easy to shape, and they should connect pretty nicely right there. And I'll do the other one. Then I have to get all these gaps filled in.
So I often get asked about the kind of clay I use. Lots of folks ask me if I shouldn't be using a sulfur-free clay, and the answer is yes if I was using a platinum cure silicone, but I'm not. I'm using tin cure silicone. The difference is that platinum cure silicone tends to last longer as a mold than tin cured silicone.
Alright, so this looks like some kind of avant-garde piece of artwork. That multicolored clay was really hard to work with in that it made me cross-eyed, man. I could hardly see where I was putting clay down and taking clay up. Anyway, let's move on to putting vents in. And what I'm going to use is thinner solder. This is electrical solder, and it's about 1/16 of an inch thick. And I'm going to put little vents as many places I think will be worthwhile. Alright, let's put the frame back on. There you go. And we're ready to rock. Alright, now I'm going to measure to see what the highest spot is, which is this eyeball. 1 3/8 inches. And I know my full depth to the clay is 1.5 inches. And so I'm going to do a quick calculation of how much volume I actually need to get about a 1/4 inch cover. It's 17.5 centimeters long, 8 centimeters wide, and the depth is 2 centimeters. When you multiply that, you get 280 centimeters cubed, which is the same as milliliters. All right, time to mix and pour. All right, bad news. Smooth On has let me down again. This is a relatively brand new jug. Been in here for probably 3 months. It's hard as a rock, even after I tried to heat it. We're gonna have to leave this project here, and I'm gonna order some more silicone, probably not from Smooth On. And so hopefully between now and the next video, I'll have at least half the mold made, and we can finish it off on the next video, pour some baits, and hopefully get out on the lake and fish with them. Sorry guys, I'll see you all on the next video.